Oh, it says we're live on air. So good evening, everybody, or good afternoon if you're in the United States, or good morning if you're somewhere further west. This is Julian Freeman, and today I'm talking to Sue Pankiewicz. Well, I think she's going to be doing most of the talking, given by the 15 minutes we've just had, which is wonderful. Because let me get my 5 minutes in first, Sue, and then you can get going. I didn't have a clue why I invited Sue to do this hangout with me, except that it seemed like the right thing to do. Stuff seems to happen to me more and more like that nowadays. I don't know why. Is it a deeper understanding of the principles that does that?
Chaos theory.
Is it a likeness to life? And I struggled to think of, well, so what could we talk about? I think Sue, you were saying just before about how you were thinking about, well, what could you talk about this evening? And I don't. This is one hangout that I've come to with absolutely no agenda whatsoever, except I had to do something. I had to write the blurb that goes with the hangout event, etc. And I just thought, well, it's Friday night because that was the date that we'd agreed to do this, and it's just end of the week. And I thought, what an amazing person to just have one of those kind of after-party type chats, have the kind of, well, I'm going to get a bit contentious now, the how was it for you, type moment. And just be light, because, I always remember you, Sue. I was seeing this photo, I think it's on Facebook, of you walking along a beach looking really, really relaxed and happy. And I'm thinking, this is a great woman. And when we did a piece of work together where we were playing with how to do Google Hangouts, and the first thing that Sue did was to go to the Google effects and start playing with those. You played with all of them, didn't you? You didn't leave one unturned. I think that whatever happens this evening is going to be fun. And just before we came on air, you mentioned a really great word that I think is a great place to start this, which was seriosity. Now, tell us about seriosity, Sue.
Okay, well, I learned that word from Roger Mills because he was the person that whose training was the first one that I came across, and he would always chuckle in between. He'd say something, and he'd be teaching or explaining something or sharing something, and then he'd have this chuckle. And one of his expressions was, we're suffering from seriosity. This is, we've got too much seriosity in our lives, and look at us, you've got too much seriosity. And it's not something that I've carried through and I use a lot, but when we were having our chat just now and we were talking about Roger, I remembered that because you prompted that with him talking to people. Well, your conversation with Dean, where Dean remembered, Roger would say, well, I'm sorry, folks, too late for you now. You've heard something. You will have heard something, even if you don't know you've heard something. And we'd all go really serious. So what does he mean? Because some of us were hearing things, but he was saying it so confidently. So yeah, that's where that came from. And interesting enough, coming up to this last couple of, is it a month now? I was talking to a friend, and in fact, it's not the first time. You get loads of opportunities if you're that dense. I'm joking. If you don't get something, cotton on to something, it revisits. This is how it seems to work for me. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? That you get another chance, and then another chance, and then another chance, and people go, oh, I'm stuck in this cycle. Actually, what you're stuck in is another chance. Isn't that amazing? Like, I didn't see through something. Well, don't worry. Next week it's going to come around again, or next month you'll get another chance. So I was talking to her, and something sort of popped up, like on the till register. Have more fun, because she's been exploring this. I'm talking about Julian Pierce. She's a friend who I met through our mutual interest in the principles, and she's going her own path really, really nicely. And so this stuck with me. I think you could be right. I probably will need reining in, because I am actually quite quite a quiet person. I don't have much to say. So anyway, just in case you interrupt. And so that's part of the conversation we were having. And I'd quite admired this spirited. I'd criticised it a bit in my head, thinking, well, that's not very realistic. And then it cropped up for me, like, bing, have more fun. Now I'd had this thought, I think, at intervals before, and I remember distinctly when I went out for my I kind of call it my morning walk, as if I do it every morning. Well, like, only if the weather's right, only if I feel like it, obviously. But I remember I could be so in my head on this walk, and I do jog and I try and run a bit, that I wouldn't actually have fun on the run or the walk. There'd be moments, and then I'd be back right in thinking, so how would I explain this? Or how am I doing with the principles? Or, oh, surely I wouldn't be thinking this if I understood blah, 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 blah. And then the thought occurred to me, what do you do for fun? It's like, who said that? Who was asking me this silly question? What do you do for fun? And I felt almost embarrassed. There's nobody there. I'm in the middle of a field, and this question has embarrassed me, and it's my question. What do you do for fun? God, what an awful question. Nothing. Well, obviously that's not true. It's just like, what do I choose? What do I actually say? That's what I'm going to do for fun, as opposed to how lucky I am to have lots of things that I find fun. So maybe I'm splitting hairs, and maybe I'm just making a distinction that's kind of not that clear. But you know, I live with somebody who knows exactly what to do for fun. It might be going out on a bike ride or kayaking, or you know, and we have nice times with friends, and that's fun, and you know, we have fun with the family. But if you ask me, well, what do you do for fun? It's like, well, those things happen. What do you mean, what do I do for fun? And it struck me that there might be something out there that I could choose to do. And so in terms of seriosity, because I'm sticking to the point, obviously, even it's completely not clear, this really struck me last week, and after a week of a lot of fun in some respects. You know, I did you may not have seen it, a Facebook post about what an interesting week it had been. This, like you said, quite random things happening. And for I would say 2 to 3 years, I have had a little thought, never spoken it, to say to Peter, maybe I'd come canoeing with you. It's kayaking really, but people would think they're just kayaks. He's very skillful. He's been doing it 40 years.
Right.
And it's his great thing, and he loves it. I've never said it out loud, just in case then I'd have to do it. But the idea of being on a river, you know, and he talks about seeing kingfishers and how the cows are really curious. They'll come right to the edge, and swans will do mock runs at you. He said, but they always give up. I just go boo, and they just settle down. And he said, but sometimes you get past them, and then they'll come running up from behind, like, you know, they'll get you, and they don't. And all of this was sounding so beautiful. That I heard myself say to him, I was thinking maybe it'd really be nice to go canoeing, but you probably wouldn't want to, because obviously I'm complete amateur and you're really good and you get bored. So he said, no, that'd be great. Do you want to go? And it was Saturday. When did we go? Sunday, I think we went. So we went, and I find myself at this beautiful, you may know Constable Country, in terms of, it's local to us, so it's like a jewel in the many jewelled crown of Essex. Beautiful. Or is it Suffolk? It's probably Suffolk, isn't it? Damn, I can't remember now. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's a river. And so we're on this river, and it's really difficult, this thing. You can't just get in and go, and it looks really easy. So I'm thinking, well, does this fit into fun category? I'm going round in circles. There are people around who can see me kind of going around in circles. And then I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Just, you know, that thought just was like a little thought that passed through. So we did that, and then we came, and that was quite strenuous, and it was hard. And when I got out, I thought my knee had locked forever, because I'm quite tall, and they weren't very long boats, and so I'm kind of gripping. He said, get your knees under the rims and grip. So I did that faithfully, and then I thought, well, I've just lost the ability to walk now. That's going to be troublesome. So we came home, and then later in the afternoon, he said, Pete suggested a bike ride, and I'm thinking, wow, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Canoeing in the morning, few odd jobs, bit of relaxation, go on a bike ride. And it was spitting with rain. And you know the storms that have been around, I don't know if you've had them where you are, but no. We had some quite heavy thunderstorms, and people counted the number of times London got struck by lightning. I think it was 3,000, don't exaggerate. And so we went on a bike ride. now I was thinking, wow, this day has been end-to-end fun. I chose, I kind of thought, yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do that. I thought, I like this. I like this. Kind of, instead of being a receptacle where things kind of come, and they do, and I'm very lucky. I just really am a very lucky person, and I have just such a lovely family, and we have just such lovely times, and very enlightened, which is where, of course, I was planning to be when I was young, planning to get here, and I've arrived. And then I saw that, and I realised that that's not really complicated. That's not really something you have to train for or practice for or read books about. You just think, oh, what shall I do? I know. And you say it out loud and it happens. And I said, did you feel a little bit bored? He said, no, not at all. He said, I love it. And it was a bit like, when you take a dog for a walk and we're so slow and they're so fast, they run up and backwards and forwards.
Yes. 3 times as as you do.
They're very forgiving, aren't they? They don't come back and roll their eyes at you and say, come on, get down on all fours, you'll find it faster. So anyway, yeah, so that's what I just saw, that really. And it's as if something's eased up. It's as if I could see that possibility differently. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to make a huge thing about it, because tomorrow there might be something I'll be sitting there thinking, this isn't much fun. But it's not about having fun, is it? It's about, I don't know, it's about you. I think you said about things happen, but things can also happen not so much by chance. Maybe the thought is chance, and then it becomes reality. And so having that idea that I can do that for me, I can actually choose to do some things. It's a very nice one. And I think that what it does, it ripples out into other areas. Suddenly, if you've got freer in a particular area, it's a bit like, oh, there's a drop of oil. My arms are freer. Guess what? I can do this, and this, because they all require free arms. You didn't know you were going to do all those things. So I think getting freed up from old restraints that were invisible anyway, you suddenly find you're, I don't know, like melting into a new world almost. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, no, very much so. Very much
Good.
so. Seriosity really means something to me. I'm not quite sure what, but I think I spent lots of my life being very serious, being responsible and practical, and being in control, and being the captain of the ship, and all those. And of course, the captain of the ship has to go down with the Titanic when it hits the ice, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now I don't see that anymore. I mean, I still have some general thinking about, well, isn't that the way you should be? Isn't this a bit irresponsible, the way you're living your life right now? You don't have a plan, you don't have a business plan, you don't have a marketing plan, you don't have a...
Really?
No, I don't have any of that stuff. No, I mean, I had to fill something out. Oh, this is just between you and me and the solicitor. But I had to fill something out. And they were asking me about all kinds of, my intention for the future and what I'd done in the past. And I'm like, well, I don't know. There are 3 options for me. I could do this, I could do that, or something else completely different could come in. Your guess is as good as mine. Now, how a solicitor's going to look at that and make a professional consideration out of it, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting.
Watch out for the writ. It's on its way. There'll be someone at the door and they slap it in your hand and they go, well, I don't know what they say, but they always say it in the movies and it always worries people. The other thing about it that I used to really struggle with, I would go to work and I qualified as a teacher, as a mature I qualified as a teacher later in life, let's say, and I worked really, really hard at it. But boy, was it a lot of fun. I would go into and after a while, because the children come in at 11, and then them at 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. Sometimes you might teach somebody 3 years in a row. Well, there were 2 or 3 years amidst that teaching I can think that were just golden years, because it wasn't golden for the marking or the planning, because if you get to high-flying year 10 or 11 groups, God, they just churn it out, all this stuff, and you're at home, reading it and writing comments, doing all of that stuff. But I'd sometimes arrive in the morning, and my tutor group were very, very kind to me, very kind. They got to know me, and that I'd come in, they'd go, "Oh, what's happened, miss? We can tell something's happened." Like, this is 20 to 9 in the morning. And I'll say, "Well, I'm not even sure I'm supposed to tell you this." I said, "But this morning," and then I'd reel off what had happened at home, and the fact that my son wasn't ready to get in the car when I was going to give him a lift. They go, "Look, you can just calm down now. You can chill. We're we're your friends." And we had this, I think, was just a lovely, lovely relationship. But I'd come home. You see, it was what I'd be describing to them hadn't been much fun. I was pretty caught up in my thinking about everything at home. And so, but I could go there and I could see it differently, and I could not make like it seemed lighter. It seemed I could see the funny side of all of it. So I would be going through these days, and not every lesson was fun, and sometimes I was tired, and sometimes I was grumpy. But in the main, I think we had a lot of fun in class, and I felt like a different person there. It felt like I didn't have seriosity sitting on my shoulders there. I kind of knew who I was. I thought I was doing a good job. After a while, I began to think that I was doing a good job, partly because I believed in relationships. I believed that they were so key that if that piece was there, the teaching was, that was, I don't know. It just came really in the learning, the teaching and learning. So it would be founded on the relationship that you had with the kids. But where did all that go when I'd come home? And I would come home and it was as if, there's the blanket. And so then I'd be thinking about, well, what's changed? I was singing, singing down the corridor. And now I'm at home. I don't feel like singing. I don't feel like, oh no, I don't, three members of my family have already said, what's for dinner, in that kind of voice of no doubt it's going to be something we don't like tone. And I'm thinking, well, you ungrateful. I'm already in that serious, not very loving, not light-hearted feeling, and so that I lived for a long time like that. And one of the most amazing things to me is that division has disappeared, and it started to disappear, I would say, the weekend that I met Roger Mills. It just started to melt away, and it wasn't an overnight success story, because I think it was after the first weekend I was ready to divorce my husband. I was just skeptical about the whole thing and cynical, and I realized I'd married the wrong man. I could never get into this new world of love, understanding, lightheartedness, because he asked me what mind was. Trick question, you see. I mean, what sort of question is that? Somebody's coming home and they're glowing, and he says, "Oh, you look like you've had a wonderful time." Yes, sit down for dinner. He says, "So what are the principles?" And I think, damn. But I try and tell him, and then I'm stuttering and stumbling, and he's just looking at me as if I'm talking about aliens exist, and I think they're next door, and I've discovered this to be true. It was like that, really. I really got angry with him. Inside, I looked at him, and he looked really, he just looked horrible, really. He just was set on destroying this feeling. And what did Roger say as we were leaving? Do not go home and try and talk about this. So that was the beginning of, well, had a sticky beginning, let's face it, but I did learn. I did catch on. Maybe it was a while, but maybe after the next quarterly training, I thought, I don't have to talk about this at home at all, because it's just leading to problems. There's wisdom. Just that thought. It's leading to problems. Whereas if you'd said that to me prior, what do you mean I don't have to talk about stuff? How is it going to get sorted out? I mean, we were too old to be doing 2 in the morning conversations. You do get to a point where, despite yourself, wisdom kicks in. You think, no, nothing's worth staying up till 3 to talk about. Like, if it's not sorted by 10:30, we'll go to bed with gritted teeth, but we're not staying up to talk. So there is always wisdom. But just to be able to, and I remember the very first time standing in the garden. We'd had a frosty thing about the garden. I wanted this, and he wanted something else. And I thought, well, what does he know about the fact that gardens need to be fluid? And so put sleepers here, that'll just be awful. That's not natural to have a straight. Anyway, so we'd had this sort of frosty. Well, it's frosty on my part. I don't even think he noticed. But I came up and we were going out, and he just looked at me and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "No, actually I'm not. I haven't been all right all afternoon." Then I'm feeling really hurt because he hasn't noticed, and it's another case where he doesn't really care, and I'm not very important, and what are my feelings? So I looked at him and I suddenly thought, but you know what, we don't have to talk about it now, because that was this afternoon. That was prior to this moment. It's gone. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I was feeling really caught up with thinking I was right about this, and that made you wrong, and therefore that wasn't very nice. You know, you had to either come round to my side, or we had this problem. We were talking about sleepers in the garden. We're not talking about majorly important things. But just seeing in that moment, yes, it's true. We don't have to talk about this. It's not going to go anywhere. But right now, it's lovely. It's a lovely afternoon. We can just go out as we intended to, and I don't have to sit looking out of the car window in a bit of a misery strop, getting a stiff neck. So there's obviously side benefits to this too. You can just kind of sit there and think. And to me, that was one of those moments where you think, this really is amazing. Because it wasn't that I thought it was a good idea that we didn't talk about it. It was I knew we didn't have to. That was a huge, I don't know, what would you say? It was like, it really came home to me, the truth of that. And it seems to me that we live our lives in these tiny moments. Well, to say tiny moments I know it's just all one moment, it's all unfolding and it's infinity, but you know, it occurs to me that it looks like it's lived in moments. And it's the stuff of life, it's just that regular stuff of life. But that's what makes up our lives mostly. That's what's made up my life mostly. It's interchanges with people, it's conversations. It isn't earth-shatteringly, uniquely amazing at all. It's my life, and it's pretty ordinary. And I spent an extraordinary amount of time examining what's wrong with it. And it was those little moments that came along that changed it dramatically. But it was only really going to have side effects in more of those normal, everyday, ordinary things that people do in life. They talk about maybe they do the garden, or what they're going to have for dinner, or would we go here or there, and you know, what about the kids? And you know, I'm not generalizing for everybody, because I know that some people have really amazingly unique and radically different, extraordinary lives. Good for them. Don't know how they manage it.
My life's pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
But then I don't have, I suppose, I don't have a desire for it to be anything different. I noticed the other day that I could be on a bench in a sunny afternoon outside of Costa with a takeaway peppermint tea and Beckley Ullman, the important bit, and just feel like I was on holiday, being nowhere, in an instant. And then I was with Mark and Sheila last week.
Yes, I saw the photos.
And but that was great, because actually I decided, first of all, I decided I wasn't going to just fly in, fly out, and that's it. I decided I'd give myself an extra day, and we went and chilled at the beach, and Mark gave himself the day off, which was lovely. And then Amy Chen Mills did a great thing for us. She was like, well, I've got to go to the airport now. Why don't you guys you boys just stay here at the beach? And we sat at the beach, and there was Mark and me discussing it. Now, he'd arrived with some real thinking going on. I'm sure he'd admit that, even now. But he got rid of it really fast. I mean, he just saw that it was thinking, and he could let it go, and it went. And we were both sitting there, and we were just talking about the same thing. It was like, if I remember my life before, when you went on a 2-week holiday, you spent the first 4 days, first of all, you were ill because your body was like letting go of all the stress that you'd been carrying around for the other 48 weeks of the year. And after that, it took you a couple of days to relax. So by day 4, you were kind of in holiday, you were kind of properly relaxed in a holiday mood, and yet, I could be in sunny Spain with Mark, sat on the beach, like just having only that day, only that afternoon, and it felt like a complete break.
Yeah.
And I think that's marvellous.
Yeah, me too.
Really lovely.
Yeah. I mean, again, we said before, you gave an example and I gave you an opposite example about planning. You were saying that for you, that you used to plan a lot, and that your concern was, well, will the plan come to fruition, and have I got to back up? Like for me, it wasn't. You would worry. So I started off with worry. So I'd be worried about the fact I found planning difficult.
You see, even last week, that was an interesting one for me, because in past I would have gone, right, this is a business opportunity, I'm going out to Spain to video somebody, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be straight out, straight back, all the rest of it. And what happened was I met some great people, and the videoing didn't actually go according to plan. But I wasn't actually that bothered about it. It's like, I joked with Amy that, well, we might have some bits and pieces out of this, and she said, "Oh, that's my favourite English saying, bits and pieces." So yes. I said, "That's it. We're going to call it that, bits and pieces."
She said that on the weekend. She did hear. That's funny, isn't it? Because we were trying to think of other English expressions like odds and sods and this and that. And yeah, she thought that she said she hadn't heard it before. It's lovely.
Yeah. I really get that, and I really get the seriosity thing, and think what I was leading to with kind of writing the blurb for this hangout was, let's just have some fun. There's no need to talk about the principles and how they apply and da-da-da. And I mean, that's great, and it slowed me down. I think getting my understanding of the principles to where it is now went slower because I was trying to understand it.
Yes, yeah.
So, hey.
Well, you see, there isn't just a route, is there? There isn't one route, and we did it slightly differently. It's like there's your experience and my experience, and really that's true across the board. It's not just in conversation about the principles. Across the board, our experience is our experience according to how we think and feel that thinking. So anything to do with the principles is the same, it seems to me. But I found it very funny when I woke up to it that I didn't see that. I thought there was some legitimizing going on because I was thinking about the principles. Well, that's all right, because, okay, I know there's no point in analyzing this part of my life or that part of my life. It just goes up and down, and that's fine. But the principles, like, lock on here. But it's fine because I'm thinking about the principles. It somehow was different. And I realized, oh, my goodness, that's just the same as any other thinking. It's just thinking. How's that helpful? And that, again, another moment where I saw that, and it's a loosening and a freeing again. And that's what I've been enjoying, because being with my grandchildren today, it's just a great reminder. Lots of people refer to children, and I think they're just such a great example. And aside to that is I read something a mother had written about, there's no fury like a 3-year-old when he receives his sandwiches cut into triangles when he wanted squares. There's no fury that can compare to that. And it's true, I've done that with my own, and they said, oh, Mummy doesn't do Mummy doesn't do sandwiches like that. And I said, well, guess what? Mima does. Isn't that exciting? You can have a different shaped sandwich. Like, that's what grandmas are really good at. They don't take things seriously. And I watched Ted today. They both had a late night, and he down, and I think tiredness was mostly part of that. But he bounced back from these little moments. I mean, it wasn't outrageous. It was just that he just thought he'd try the old, oh dear, the sand's flicking. Oh dear, it's done it again. And we're saying it's not a great idea to do that, because if it gets in someone's, oh, and then he's grinning. So we said, well, come and sit down here until you can have a little think, and then when you're ready not to flick sand, well, we can carry on. It's all done really, I love it. It's all done really gently and kindly. But it made me think as you know, the game where you have a bat and there's a ball on a piece of elastic.
Yeah.
That's like you see it with kids. It's like bang, you know, there they are. They're out over here and they're not feeling good, and then boing, they're back. The next second he's back in there and he's digging this sandcastle and he's laughing. He's not learned yet to consider whether his parents were, you know, right or wrong or stifling him. He's just in that moment, and these people who he's passionately in love with, his parents, you know, they're doing something and he's learning from it, but he doesn't hold it against them. He's back in life. He's back with that sandcastle. That's all there is. And then he's back in the water, and then he falls over, so he's not very happy about that, and then he's crying, and then he's just, it's okay again because they thought of something else. Why don't we just jump over these? And so there's the reminder that that's possible for us. The concerns are different. It's not going to be about, you know, flicking a bit of sand and that's dangerous. It's going to be other things, but the level that we you know, we grade it, don't we? Oh, this is really serious. You know, I can't just bounce back from this one. Well, of course, it will be exactly what you think it is. And there is no difference, is there, do you think? Really? In terms of what we create, we're creating it. And remembering that we're creating it, somehow it just like loosens that kind of, oh, yeah, I can drop in, it doesn't matter. And actually, now come to think of it, I've been doing that all my life with certain things that had that label. Oh, you can drop that, it doesn't really matter. You can drop that, it doesn't really matter. So I was doing it, but only because in my thinking, I was giving myself permission. But I can give myself universal permission, because I was making up the boundaries. I was saying, yes, you can with this, but not with this. Like with Ted, I see, and with Bella too, that they're just universal application for them. And long may it last within them. And I'm just so glad that they have people around them who see it and who themselves are demonstrating it just naturally. That we move on, that we change our minds, and that we have a new thought. And isn't that just absolutely wonderful? And I think that's what it's that seeing of the afternoon being, it's like a holiday. I said that to Peter. I said on Sunday evening, you know, it's like been like a mini holiday.
Yeah.
Now, you see, that's not that unusual for him. He does that a lot. He said, oh, I think I'll go kayaking this morning, or I'm off for a bike ride, or should we go for a walk? That's the common way. That's for him very normal. And he knows how to make his mind up about that sort of thing without any... I might wake up and think, oh, I don't know what to do today. You know, if it's not a non-work day, I might be a bit puzzled by it. Oh, I've got all this time now, what should I do? And for him, it's not. It's like, eyes open, it's daytime. That's the first thing. He doesn't close them again and think, oh, I wish I could just have some more sleep. It's like, boing. And I tell him, I hear your eyes opening, it wakes me up. I said, just try and close them again. And he goes, well, I can't because they're open now and it's a day. And I won't get this one back again. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot living with a man like that. I've also learned a lot from the 3-year-old and 6-year-old. So, you know, I don't know what you said that, I think it was earlier we were talking, you said you didn't feel so inclined to be whizzing off to different places to listen to different people. Was that what?
Yeah.
That you were just seeing what unfolded in life.
Yeah.
And seeing that there's just this infinite number of things that, you know, ways we look at things.
Well, there's two interesting people that I've met this year. The one was Jack Pransky, who I remember sending out an itinerary for his tour, his trip, that had about 3 entries on it and 60 or 40 empty slots. And in the end, it was like a European tour. In fact, he sent me a T-shirt which has all his dates on it and all who he was with and all that. Over 20-something trainings on stuff he did. Talks.
Yeah.
I mean, and that came out of nothing. And to me, there's something there about stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And Dick and Bettinger was the same. I had a Skype call with him like in January, where he was getting concerned about spending too much time away from home. And then I saw him in Manchester in June, and we laughed because he's like, so you're globetrotting now, you know, so you're doing this stuff all over the place. And it's just, well, it just came up for him. It's just, that's just how life's occurring and the opportunities that present themselves. Mm-hmm. And I kind of get that a bit as well, because it, you know, I met Elsie Spittle this year, and that has kind of been a kind of, so the next step for me is to go to the school, and it's just a knowing. It's just like, oh, there's the next step for you. Oh, okay, I better take that then, because that's my only job now, is to step into whatever it is that's occurring. Yeah. And what happened to me? This week I read Dean Reese Evans' post about the Matrix, and you know, the bit that I find really funny is that I've never seen the end of the Matrix, because I always get so confused about what's reality. It's like, when's he in the system and when's he out? I need to know this. Back to seriosity, I guess, and that would confuse me, and then I go, no, I can't watch this film anymore. But that's one of the things I got. But from reading his blog post and the Roger Mills point that he put in there about, well, it's too late.
Yes.
You heard something. And if you haven't read, people watching this Hangout haven't read Dean Reese Evans' blog post called Matrix Part 3, go to his website, threeprinciplestraining.com, and read it. It's great. But what it made me feel, and not feel, it reminded me, a little thought came up in my head of, my life's like Alice in Wonderland now. You know, I get something come up that goes, eat me, or drink me, you know, and I do it, and then that's right, you know, it turns out that then around the next corner is Tweedledum and Tweedledee, or, you know, the Walrus and the Carpenter, or, you know, it's just amazing. How does that happen?
Do you think that it's actually always been like that, but we framed it differently? Because I think, if I look back to specifics, I remember meeting Dean one evening. We were running courses together, and I remember meeting him one evening, and he just said, are you going to Sid's conference? This must have been, I think, 2004. Could have been 2005, doesn't matter. In Vancouver. And I looked and I said, no. Are you? He went, absolutely, I wouldn't miss it. I said, really? I mean, we're talking about Vancouver, we're talking about a conference. Well, how does he get to do that? And I suddenly said, do you know what? When that email came to me, inviting, you know, I went out with the information about the conference and sort of inviting people to come, I deleted it. Because it was, I don't go to Vancouver to do conferences about the three principles. I go to school and teach people, or kids. And it's like, that could have just gone, whew. But sitting, and it was a chance meeting in a way. We hadn't planned to meet, and we might not have had that conversation, but we did. And he asked me that question. And in the asking of the question, I suddenly thought, but I could. But I could. Now, actually, it wasn't that clear in that moment, because I can do it this way, that way. But it opened up a window, and I breathed in the air of possibility. And so I went to that conference in Vancouver. Now, I don't call that planning. I don't call that foresight. I just call that accidental good fortune. And I can think, even going to that the first talk that I went to, which was locally, there were about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 people who were that quarter ahead of me in terms of Roger's training in the UK, because I think that was the very first training. I know Sid was over. I think Sid had come over by virtue of Margaret Opio, who ran the Blue Balloon Foundation, and that's right. So she was somebody that had been in the States, come across principles, and thought, right, I've got to take this to the UK. So, you know, good for her, because she was that person that created all of this, the first person, I believe. And so it was a chance conversation that my niece said to me, oh, I've met these two guys, and they're talking about these things called principles. I don't really know much about it, but I said, yes, I'll come. And I went to this local talk. Now, I know I was looking for something, I know I was looking for relief. I knew deep down that it didn't have to be this complicated. I just knew it somehow, but I didn't know why I knew that or what I was hanging on to, because I couldn't have told you the evidence for that. But I just knew that life shouldn't be this complicated, that somehow I was missing a trick or I was missing something. And that was, again, pure chance. And one of the best jobs I ever had when I was 20 I think, 21, came about from getting into a lift at County Hall in Chelmsford. And I got in with a bunch of careers officers and a very enigmatic, I don't know what role he had, but I think he was sort of maybe a senior something. And I listened to this, but it wasn't what they said. It was the feeling in that lift. That's what I want to do. Now, I was just working in a really dull, it was just a job that I took because I'd left home and I needed somewhere to work. And I wept the first 3 days I worked there out of sheer frustration and boredom. And I had actually resigned at this point. And I was in the lift and I thought, they're inspired. I didn't use that word. I wouldn't have known to talk about inspiration like that. And as it happened, I had a leaving interview. They were interested to know why people left, which I thought was very, very good. And so they asked me, and I had to say, well, I just can't bear it. It's so boring, really. And then I said, but I think what I'd like to do is this. And they said, well, apply, because there were applications. And how chancy is that? I'd never even thought about that. And I had a fantastic, I think 3 years before I had my first child, the most amazing job. Like freedom I could only have dreamt about, going to all kinds of area meetings, like playing with the big grown-ups, always feeling slightly fraudulent because I felt very young. And yeah, again, chance. So something within us, isn't there? There must be something within us. There's much, much more. When it gets a chance, it says eat me, as you say. It says drink me. But I couldn't hear, I wouldn't have been able to recognize that at the time. It just felt like just pure old chance. Oh, that was lucky.
Well, for me, it wouldn't have been in the plan. It wouldn't have been, or I would have had thinking about, oh, this could be dangerous to eat, or
Yes.
I shouldn't. I've never eaten it before. So, what are the consequences of eating it? I can't predict what might happen. Yet in the book, Alice is totally open to whatever is going to happen, and not that fussed about when it does happen either. Very
quite cool.
Yeah, very.
When you talk about The Matrix, I too struggled with the film, but only after I'd seen it, because I thought all the way through that film I was just trying to keep trying to keep the crosshairs on the point, or what was happening, and as you say, what? So I didn't actually take in the film. I had no idea how profound it was, and how many levels of meaning there were. And I think it was Dean talking to Rudy, I think, at some point, because they're great. They were into similar films. And I think, well, did I see that film? And I remember on one of our weekend trainings, Dean talked about when Mio realizes the bullets are not real. Oh, it's not real. And I thought, I need to watch it again. I need to watch that film again. And I never have, funnily enough, because.
There you go. There's a reason for that too. Wisdom is telling you don't need to see it.
No, but it was as if, how could I have missed it? So there we go. How could I have missed it? What is it that I do when I'm watching film? Anyway, that's gone. But it is different things for different people. I remember listening to the radio for weeks after my first, introduction and my first learning, as it were, and I just heard it everywhere. I would see it in a poem, I'd see it in a book I was reading, I would see it hear it on the radio. I'd see the opposite too, like, I need you to make me happy, blah, da, da, da. And I'd think, no, oh no. And you'd hear it, all of that coming across, the daily misunderstanding within, that's in the ether. I mean, let's face it. And I'd also begin to hear the moments where the truth, well, what I would call the truth, was there. And it was, those moments where you see the birds for the first time in a long time. sitting in the garden thinking, how can we take this for granted? There are 3 birds over there. I could almost touch them. If I sit very still, they won't mind me being here. But most of the time, they just come in and out, and we go, oh, yeah, there's birds. Yeah, they're just birds in the garden. And there's a moment where I think, they're wild creatures. They're just extraordinary. I know so little about them, and here they are in my garden. Or now we get very excited if we've got deer that just trot across the field next door, and there's a fox. Well, if there was a family, we saw the cubs. And the things like that, to me, are the extraordinariness of the ordinary. Because, you know, some people would say, well, they're just vermin. No, actually, they're not. They're very intriguing creatures. They live next door. And sometimes I'll say to people, I haven't seen the fox for a while. And, you know, the times I've said that, and then he'll appear that very day. Just, in fact, we were on holiday, and my son was here once, and staying while we were on holiday. And I remember he phoned us. I don't know where we were. I think possibly in Greece. He said, Mum, there's a deer in the bottom of the garden, and I'm worried about it. And I said, right, why are you worried about it? He said, well, I don't know if it can get out. I said, how do you think it got in? He said, I don't know. I said, do you think it could have jumped over the fence? Well, I don't know, it's only a small one. I was thinking, what does he want me to do? I'm in Greece. But it jumped over the fence. But it was just like wonderful that he too was so kind of this communal garden round here, I suppose, creature was in our garden, and it's suddenly all excited about it. Yeah. So I don't know what that's got to do with anything.
I think we've just been celebrating the ordinary, the little things.
Yeah.
And isn't that beautiful? I
think it is.
To be living life, to be just living, just appreciating it, just in a place where you can appreciate it.
Yeah. And wanting it doesn't really help at all, does it, in a way? I think by the time that I wanted to live like this, you know, when I was a young parent, I loved to be living as I am now as a very young grandmother. Very young. I mean, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But anyway, I'm joking. If I could have had these moments then, see, I can do it now. I can just suddenly have that thought, and then I realise, what are you talking about? You had the moments you had then, and you've got the moments you have now, and it is the same moment, but wow. You know, that I actually feel really appreciative of myself, of what I did then, and I have really kind thoughts about myself more often. That, boy, I know I did my best. I know that. But earlier on I was thinking about the way we talk about people are doing the best they can with the thinking they have in the moment. Now, understanding that, it has a very different feeling to that, the way that I've always heard that said. People will say it to children at school, well, we know you did your best, dear. Like, what a condemning thing to say to a kid who hasn't succeeded in whatever. We know you did your best. Actually, that is it's condemning, because you've told them it's their best and it wasn't good enough. But to say to somebody, well, we understand that you had no choice in that moment, because, of course, the feelings were coming from your thinking. How could you have acted differently unless you had a new thought? What a world apart that is. So we have the same words in the same phrase, and it's two sides. It's the opposite. On the one hand, it was very unhelpful, I believe. It's sort of like that. It's almost patronizing or hollow. And then you have it, and it's like it opens up compassion, and it opens up a depth of understanding for ourselves and for others, because we know that's what's happening moment to moment for everybody. Everybody's doing the best they can. And but that's not the end of the story. Oh, damn. You've got there before me. That's very cute.
I thought we were getting into seriosity there. It was lovely seriosity, but I thought now was the time to go.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know, I'm going to probably resist, because I can.
But you know, in my old life, I would never have done this. I would never even press that button. In fact, let me go a step further. And you know this thing called the randomizer. Let's give that a go. Hey.
There's something wrong about that. Can you get rid of it? That's good. The trouble is, it's staying still and your head's moving. It's just.
I know it's not that good, is it?
No.
It's not.
No, it's funny.
Maybe the pirate hat would do. In fact, I think if I go to the next bit, I can add an eye patch to it. How about that?
Isn't that clever? Just amazing.
But you know, thank you for this evening, because it has just injected. I think there's so much talk about getting it and how to get it and all those kind of things. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Not saying that's wrong, because people are, as you say. I've got a friend called Chris Paradox who has a great. I quote him now because he says, "One world, 7 billion minds, 7 billion realities."
Yes.
And that's the way it is. Everybody's different, so everybody goes a different way. But I just thought it would be lovely this evening to inject a little bit of, isn't it just fun living life as a thought?
Yeah.
And you did that beautifully. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It takes one to know one, you see.
Well,
another old wise saying.
You know, I'll take that as because I don't think I could have said that about myself even 8 weeks ago. Yeah.
No, isn't it funny? Because we've never met, have we? I don't think we've ever met.
Not in person.
Not in person. But before we even had that, I had that brief Skype with you. Well, it was part of the technophobe thing, wasn't it? And you were sitting there with Beck. Now, before I came to that conversation, I had you down as somebody who was, like must be having fun all the time kind of person.
Absolutely. If everybody else saw it, I didn't.
Yeah. Yes. And that's a funny thing too, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
But now I do. I see it more and more, and I'm really grateful for that. That's a huge gift.
Definitely. Yeah. And yes, so that I think that's a really important point, that whenever we're saying anything, we're not really saying that it's true for anyone or it's actually true. We're just, thoughts occur to us and they come with a feeling. And they're feeling, I suppose what I think now is I've got really accustomed to a relationship with my feelings, which is so much more fun. And I think I said to you earlier that, if my quite a frequent one used to have been waking up in the morning and going, a jolt of panic or jolt of anxiety, really physical. And sometimes that just happens out of the blue, and perhaps if I can, if the thought comes to me, I might just think, is that all you've got this morning? It's like, you're not really paying attention here. Give me some real anxiety. But not as a thing to do, but just as a thought that occurs to me in that moment, that this is not real. So if it's not real, why don't you just bring some more of it on, because it's not going to make any difference. So playfulness. Just another thought was remembering somebody at work saying to me, I was singing, and this was a different job, and it was a much more challenging situation, and we were having a conversation about having fun. See, it's been a theme really that I've been missing all this time, but luckily it never gave up on me. And she said something about, well, obviously when you're at work, you have to take it very seriously. It's really important. And I said, well, I know it's really important, and I believe I do take it seriously. But you know what? I think we can have so much fun taking it seriously. It was as if she was not able to equate enjoyment and lightheartedness with doing this important job. And that's what I'd begun to see as well, that there's no mold, is there? We haven't got to all end up wearing the same suit. That would be weird. We haven't got to wear too tight shoes forever. And this has been like slipping off a pair of too tight shoes. Sort of finding I'm not wearing that really constricting suit anymore. And invariably, another one will crop up. And after a day I'll think, I think I've been wearing that suit again. Whoops. But I don't beat myself up for it. Because I'm really nice when I'm doing my best. Honest.
I noticed. Great. So let's leave it there.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm sure I started thinking about, oh, should we leave? Should I say something at the end to sort of
Oh
bounce
yes.
bounce people into their weekends? And I thought, is there anything to say? I tell you what I'll do. I'll when I set up these hangouts in the first place, I was expecting people to ask questions, and I said, email me at julian@starsofwellbeing.com if you've got any questions or want to get in touch. Da da da. Nobody did. Now
Oh.
that's kind of different from when I've noticed when other people do hangouts, they're getting loads of questions for the speaker when they. So do I worry about it? No, I don't. But maybe there's somebody out there that would like to talk about the lighter stuff, etc. So if they do, yeah, get in touch. I'd love to talk to you, or I'm sure Sue would love to talk to you as well.
We could just nominate people.
Nominate.
You've already spoken to Mark, haven't you? Has he been in this hot seat?
Oh yeah, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was.
Because I met him and I figured if I was a bloke, he'd be my drinking buddy.
Oh, I tell you what, that's a fantastic idea. I tell you what, this is to the people out there. So if you'd like to do a hangout, get in touch. Yeah. Julian@starsofwellbeing.com. Because I've got no idea. I've got no idea where this is taking me, and you could be the next step. You could be, and there could be some fantastic connection.
And he pays really well. Don't miss an opportunity. It's a really good earner.
Oh yeah, and the rest of yes.
And it's only 45 minutes preparation. Like being grilled and interviewed, and you have to send a blood sample as well. It's cool.
That's it.
I highly recommend it.
No, enough now, Sue Pankiewicz. Go and enjoy your weekend.
I'm on my own. I'm going to end up speaking to myself. I haven't finished.